Tonight, a key minister quits Israel's emergency war cabinet, accusing President Benjamin Netanyahu of mishandling the conflict in Gaza. Also tonight, tributes flow for Michael Mosley after the British TV presenter's body was found on a Greek island. Anthony Albanese takes aim at the coalition over its claim emissions reduction targets won't be met regardless of who's in power. And a protesting nun, a volunteering dentist and a domestic violence service CEO among the Canberrans to receive King's Birthday honours. Yuma, good evening. Jade Toomey with ABC News coming to you from Ngunnawal country. And we also acknowledge other people and families with connection to the lands of the ACT. Just 24 hours after celebrating the return of 4 Israeli hostages, Benjamin Netanyahu's grip on power has been dealt a blow. Key Minister Benny Gantz has quit the war cabinet, accusing Netanyahu of putting his own political survival ahead of the war. The move has deepened divisions within Israel's leadership, with growing anger over the direction of the conflict.
Escorted across the Gaza beach the moment freedom was in sight for 4 Israeli hostages. The Defence Forces releasing more images of their high-stakes rescue mission. But the celebration for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was short-lived. Hours after the successful rescue, Benny Gantz, a key minister in his 3-person war cabinet, dramatically quit over the handling of the war.
Netanyahu is preventing us from advancing towards true victory. I am leaving the government today with a heavy heart.
The former defence minister has repeatedly clashed with Benjamin Netanyahu over post-war plans and had issued him with an ultimatum. He's accused Netanyahu of putting his political survival before the lives of hostages and prolonging the war.
I won't promise you an easy and quick victory. You deserve more than empty promises, but the State of Israel can and must achieve true victory.
He's calling on Netanyahu to name a date for an early election and let Israeli citizens decide. Anger within Israel over the war has been boiling for months, with hundreds of thousands taking their fury to the streets.
Netanyahu is trying to appear large and in charge now. If he wants to do that, then he might have to start playing by the United States rules rather than by his own personal ambition, his political gain, which has clearly been driving him until now.
Netanyahu posted on social media appealing to Gantz to stay on, saying, "Benny, this is not the time to abandon the battle. This is the time to join forces."
Benny Gantz's departure won't topple the government, but it leaves the door open for extremist coalition members to push their agenda of continuing the war and to complete Israeli occupation of Gaza. And it's likely to lead the US to taking a more active role in moderating the trajectory of this war and pushing for a ceasefire. Alison Horn, ABC News, Jerusalem.
There's been an outpouring of grief and love for TV presenter and diet guru Michael Mosley. He's being remembered as an adventurous man who is kind and funny. His body was found on the Greek island of Toomey, and it's now been revealed that it was a TV crew filming on the island who made the tragic find.
It was a Greek TV crew filming the island of Toomey from on board a boat that spotted a figure on a rocky hill.
And you can clearly see there is a man lying down with his hand on his belly, a watch, and on his other hand he has his bag.
After 4 days of searching by air, land and sea for Dr. Michael Mosley, a grim discovery.
I'm really sorry for the family. I'm sorry that I'm the one who found it. Sorry.
A statement from his wife, Dr. Claire Bailey Mosley, confirming the worst. It is devastating to have lost Michael, my wonderful, funny, kind and brilliant husband. He did an incredible climb, took the wrong route and collapsed. We're taking comfort in the fact that he so very nearly made it. He was found metres from Agia Marina Beach, around an area where search and rescue teams, locals and tourists alike, had been scouring. Police believe he had been dead for a number of days. Michael Mosley left his wife from St Nicholas Beach, setting off for a walk, but never returned. 20 minutes later, he was spotted on CCTV in the nearby town of Peddi. He was then seen again at the marina, heading northeast. The diet doctor is being remembered as a loving man.
People will remember him, people will smile. Anyone who met Mike will always smile because he was such a loving, kind, generous person.
Now, the diet I'm about to go on...
Following a diabetes diagnosis, Michael Mosley popularised intermittent fasting with his 5-2 diet.
And it's also good for my heart and lungs.
But he was best known for entertaining audiences and inspiring people to live a happier and healthier life.
The number of people who queue up at his events, not to get signed copies of his books, but to say thank you, I followed your advice and it made a huge difference to me.
The body of the 67-year-old has been transferred to the neighbouring island of Rhodes, with a coroner to determine the exact cause of his death. A tragic end for his 4 children and wife of more than 35 years and the thousands of people whose lives he changed. Rani Heyman, ABC News.
The Prime Minister is confident Australia can meet its 2030 emissions reduction target after the coalition cast doubts on the commitment. Anthony Albanese has ramped up the government's attack on the opposition after it announced plans to dump Australia's short-term climate plans if it wins the election. Political reporter Stephanie Boris has more.
Happy King's Birthday weekend, everyone.
A right royal bollocking.
Peter Dutton is walking away from climate action.
The Prime Minister taking aim at the coalition over its plans to dump some of Australia's climate policies.
You can't shape the future if you're afraid of it.
Nearly 200 countries signed the Paris Agreement, a commitment to keep global warming below 2 degrees. Australia promised by 2030 it would reduce emissions by 43%, but the opposition says that's not possible under a Labor or Liberal government.
You need to come clean with the Australian people on that.
Australia's climate watchdog says the government is close but not on track to meet its 2030 target. The Prime Minister's pointed to new projects and policies he says will boost the use of renewables.
I'm very confident not only that we can get there, but importantly that we must get there.
It's looking pretty tough, to be honest. I think they're the right sorts of policies, but the problem has been that they haven't been strong enough and tight enough to absolutely drive towards the 2030 target.
Further down the track, the coalition insists net zero by 2050 is achievable, but there's no detail on what the party's short-term plan is.
While, of course, I won't be announcing the coalition's climate and energy policy today, what I can tell you when it comes to targets, we won't be plucking a number out of thin air.
If the coalition submits a less ambitious 2030 target, Australia would be the first country to do so under the Paris Agreement.
Weakening our 2030 target would be a slap in the face of the spirit and intent of the Paris Agreement, and to our neighbours in the Pacific. It would also endanger us in terms of global trade and diplomatic arrangements, but not necessarily have any punishment within the Paris Agreement.
Environmental benefits aside, the point of having targets is to set incentives and create certainty for investors with hundreds of billions of dollars to spend on whatever replaces coal. Another argument over targets sows doubt among investors who'll be weighing up decisions well beyond the next election. Stephanie Boris, ABC News, Canberra.
The Canberra Liberals have admitted it's unlikely they'll be able to have a dedicated bus lane across Commonwealth Avenue Bridge as part of their alternative to light rail. The Liberals have long vowed to axe Stage 2B of the light rail project from Commonwealth Park to Woden, and in April proposed dedicated bus lanes, extra rapid routes and hundreds of additional electric buses. But in a social media post, opposition transport spokesman Mark Parton has now conceded a dedicated bus lane across Lake Burley-Griffin is unlikely, as plans for the National Capital Authority's upgrade of the bridge, released last year, don't provide for an alternative vehicle lane.
Well, the Liberals' plan was very specific, that they would provide a busway between Commonwealth Avenue over Lake Burley-Griffin and down to Woden. The Liberals' B-grade bus plan was always light on detail, but it fails at the most basic scrutiny.
Gains by far-right parties in European Union elections have prompted a bruised French President Emmanuel Macron to call a snap national poll. In what's being viewed as a gamble to re-establish his authority, Macron labelled the rise of nationalism a danger to Europe, calling French citizens to the ballot box just weeks out from the Paris Olympics.
A resounding vote in favour of the far right in France. In a high-risk gamble that could see his party humbled again, Emmanuel Macron has dissolved the French Parliament and called a snap election for just weeks before the Paris Olympics.
This is a situation that I cannot come to terms with. The rise of nationalists, of demagogues, is a danger for our nation.
Far-right opposition leader Marine Le Pen celebrating her party's surge at the ballot box. She's the big winner today and could well repeat that success in a few weeks.
We are ready to exercise power if the French place their trust in us during the future legislative elections.
But signs that Le Pen's success has also re-energised her opponents, hundreds protesting her party's result in central Paris.
I think there's generally a feeling of disquiet and of sadness at the results of this vote here.
In the last French election 2 years ago, Emmanuel Macron retained government with almost 60% of the vote. But these European elections appear to show that support for the far-right opposition in France has since grown.
The far right also doing well in other major European countries. They made big gains in Germany and Spain too. But that wasn't true everywhere, the political centre maintaining its majority in the EU Parliament.
Together with others, we will build a bastion against the extremes from the left and from the right. We will stop them.
The elections determine the makeup of European Parliament for the next 5 years, and the far-right's increased number of seats could make it harder to agree on policies for nearly 500 million Europeans. Michelle Rimmer, ABC News.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been sworn in for an historic third term in office. Thousands attended the ceremony, which took place at the Presidential Palace in New Delhi, with cheers erupting from the crowd when he stepped up to the podium to make his pledge. It's the first time Modi has been forced to govern in a power-sharing arrangement after his BJP party failed to secure an absolute majority in recent elections. Voters punished his party over rising unemployment and food prices. To Victoria now, where a bird flu outbreak has spread to a fifth farm, prompting fears of nationwide egg shortages and price increases. Coles has now put a purchase limit on eggs, and while other supermarkets aren't planning to follow suit, some businesses are already feeling the pinch.
The cakes have been rising at this Melbourne cafe in St Kilda for more than 40 years, but lately costs have been rising too, especially for eggs.
We've had 2 price increases in the last, I think, four to 6 months, and this time I think the excuse was because of the bird flu.
Which has now been detected at 5 Victorian poultry farms.
But frankly, it would have been a lot more if the Victorian government, supported by the Commonwealth, hadn't moved as quickly as they had.
Almost 500,000 chickens have been destroyed. The Victorian Farmers Federation says it's reduced supply by about 450,000 eggs a day. That's prompted Coles to introduce limits on egg purchases to 2 dozen per person in every state but Western Australia.
If you're close to where the farms are, then you're going to be short of eggs. But as you move further out, it becomes less of a problem.
There are no plans from Woolworths, Aldi or major IGAs to introduce limits. The industry hopes they won't have to. Farms have implemented strict quarantine measures to stop the spread.
And they're doing a lot of testing on the farms in the area, so that we're quite confident that those farms that don't have the disease.
Authorities say the spread of bird flu to humans is extremely rare. Victoria has recorded one case this year in a returned traveller who's since fully recovered. It wasn't related to the farm outbreaks here, and authorities are reassuring consumers any eggs they do buy will be safe to consume. Consumers are most concerned about possible cost increases.
I probably wouldn't buy them as often.
They definitely go up too much, I guess.
Probably just give it a break for a while.
The advice is to shop around. Cyan Valance, ABC News, Melbourne.
From artists and sporting legends to public servants and swimming teachers, more than 700 people have been recognised for their service in this year's King's Honours list. For the 4th year in a row, pandemic leaders have also been given a nod. Victoria Pingeli reports.
Their skills vary, but these Australians are truly remarkable. Among those recognised in this year's King's Honours, Gamilaroi chef Auntie Beryl Van Oplu from Redfern in Sydney. A culinary master, her knowledge of native bush tucker is used across the world.
You know, I'm 81 now and I think it's a great honour to have that, and the people that have nominated me, I thank them very much.
More than 700 people were honoured on this year's roll, including Perth youth worker Pat Ryan, who's helping young people heal by putting wheels in motion.
We aim to dismantle young people's disadvantage so that they can pursue a future with hope.
6 Australians were awarded the top honour, the Companion of the Order of Australia. Former COVID-era Labor Premiers Mark McGowan and Daniel Andrews also given the nod for their leadership, as well as this South Australian epidemiologist for her work improving vaccination rates in remote communities.
I'm thrilled that public health has also been recognised. Normally we're behind the scenes, nobody knows who we are. Good public health means you shouldn't notice us.
In Queensland, rock legend and former Powderfinger player John Collins is being recognised for his work offstage, supporting struggling artists.
Hey mate.
How are you?
Good, how are you? The costs have gone through the roof for smaller venues. That sort of natural progression from people going to see young artists was broken through COVID, and I don't think it's come back yet.
For the family of former AFL football legend John Devine, pride and sadness at his posthumous award.
He really valued the contribution he made to the people that he coached. And I know he took a lot of pride in seeing those people turn into successful people in the community, and hopefully he had a little bit of a role to play in that.
From quiet achievers like women's community organiser Margaret Finlaker-Smith to big personalities like comedian Hamish Blake, children's entertainer Jimmy Giggle and cricket great Glenn McGrath.
Had a pat on the back.
There's a raft of homegrown talent. Victoria Pengilly, ABC News.
At first thought, it may not seem like a nun, a dentist and a chief executive would have much in common, but they're among the dozens of locals honoured today for their contributions to the nation and the Canberra community.
Standing up for her convictions may have led to a couple of arrests.
There you go.
But today, aged almost 80, Sister Jane Irene Keogh is being honoured for her service.
I got involved because I was angry. I was angry over Tampa and I wanted justice. I don't know where that came from. It's just something within me to stand up against unfairness. And that's where my motivation came for a lot of years.
The former school principal took practical actions to support detained asylum seekers.
I started going to Baxter And I went there many times. I'd travel down to Adelaide and stay a week or 2 weeks, and I'd smuggle in SIM cards and get to know the guys.
She also began protesting, most notably getting herself arrested a decade ago after a prayer sit-in at then ACT Senator Jade Seselja's office.
I wasn't charged, but I was hoping I'd be charged because I thought, you know, you use what you've got. I thought none arrested might make a bit of a headline.
Former refugee Dr. Locke Lamb shares that commitment to supporting those who are vulnerable.
I came here in 1978 as a refugee, and I know what's it like to go without and the struggle to live without anything.
She works with nursing home patients, hosts regular charity days and travels overseas to work in remote areas of Nepal and Vietnam.
We also give the staff an education on oral health. Why is it important to look after the teeth, and why is it important to take care of them before they get too bad?
On a different front line, Gregory Aldridge has dedicated his career to the scourge that is domestic violence.
I got into a lot of trouble when I was young. I had a probation officer when I was 16, and I found a good counsellor, and that was so helpful for me.
Now the CEO of Everyman, he works with perpetrators.
I think there's so many men who use violence who are capable of being reclaimed back into the community as men who can live without violence.
All three, along with 25 other Canberrans on the King's Birthday Honours list, will be formally recognised at a ceremony later in the year. Lottie Twyford, ABC News, Canberra.
To sport now, and a stirring come-from-behind win inspired by skipper Stephen Critchin has lifted Canterbury into 7th place on the NRL ladder. The 22-18 point victory over Parramatta soured Eels captain Clint Gutherson's 200th game.
And then for Talangi.
A issue for Bulldogs captain Stephen Crichton. Tensions were typically high between the traditional rivals.
They're just upset. It's a public holiday, they're not getting the day off.
For
Crichton scores it.
Canterbury moving into the top 8 with a 3rd straight victory. Daniel.
Report of the fight of MND's Big Freeze.
A sea of took the plunge into the icy water. The costumes once again colourful. Musicians the alter ego of many, but the message remaining the same.
Where the whole country just comes together and, rallies for him and so many families that are going through this.
Beanies, everyone!
Thousands of Demons faithful made the trek to the G from Federation Square. Among those, Neil's brother Terry.
It's just getting bigger, but more importantly, we just got to find a cure for this damn thing.
Coming off a 92-point loss to Fremantle the round prior, Melbourne were hoping for a much better performance in the King's Birthday clash, but it was more of the same to start. Nathan Kruger kicking his first AFL goal in 407 days as the Pies collected the first 3. Melbourne's uphill battle becoming steeper, with star Christian Petrarca needing to be subbed off after receiving a knock in the opening quarter. Needing something to get back into the contest, turnovers killed any momentum the Demons could muster as Collingwood stretched the lead to 27 points at the main break.
How about that for a finish from the big guy?
Still Sidebottom showed off his hops as the Magpies soared.
He's got it all to do here, and he does.
Kysaiah Pickett added some spark with a highlight of his own, but there was little to celebrate for D's fans as the Pies ran away with it.
And then that just sums up the day for the D's.
Jack Crisp receiving the Neil Danaher Trophy for best on ground in his 227th consecutive AFL game, the second longest consecutive game streak in VFL-AFL history. Fraser Fife, ABC News.
Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz has won his first French Open title in a 4-hour, 5-set comeback against German Alexander Zverev. The world number
all the Spanish players who have won this tournament and be able to put my name on that amazing list is
Dutchman Max Verstappen has won the Canadian Formula One Grand Prix to extend his lead in the championship. On a wet track, Oscar Piastri finished 5th and fellow Australian Daniel Ricciardo was 8th. Verstappen finished ahead of British drivers Lando Norris and George Russell to win in Montreal for the 3rd year in a row. High-profile veterans and the next generation of young swimmers are battling it out in Brisbane tonight for a spot on Australia's Olympic team for Paris. Some key finals are just about to start. Our sport reporter Amanda Shalala is there for us tonight. Amanda, world record holder Ariarne Titmus is beginning her Olympic title defence. How she looked in the heats today?
Really good, Jade. Titmus is the favourite for tonight's women's 400 metres freestyle final and a very strong chance of defending her crown in Paris. Her main challenger tonight will be Lani Pallister, although she was several seconds slower in the heats. Now, Titmus says she even surprised herself with her swim in the heats and she managed to switch off in the second half of the race, although she admitted she has been feeling a little bit edgy coming into this meet.
If I just do what I know how to do, it's just another heat swim, but for some reason at Olympic trials you just get way more nervous about everything. Being safe on the start, not going to make it through, you know, that type of thing.
And there are plenty of big names in action tonight. Who will you be keeping an eye on?
Well, the men's 400 metres freestyle final is going to be another blockbuster. We have the 2022 world champion, Elijah Winnington, up against the 2023 world champion in Sam Short. And Australia has a decorated history in this event at the Olympics. So should both men qualify, they could very be well going for gold against each other in Paris. We also saw Sam Williamson come very close to breaking a 15-year-old national record in the 100 breaststroke. So he'll be hoping to go faster tonight. And these are also the Paralympic trials. So Brendan Hall and Lakeisha Patterson are a couple of the big names to look out for in their respective 400 freestyle finals.
Amanda Shalala reporting from the Brisbane Aquatic Centre. Thank you. To the weather now, and Robert Schmidley from Farah has sent us this excellent scene of the sun perfectly hitting the trees at Mulligan's Flat on another cool and crisp Canberra day. It was a cool below zero start for the capital. It got down to -2 at the airport and -1 at Tuggeranong, but it warmed up to a top of 14 degrees around 3 o'clock this afternoon. A welcome -4 degrees was the low in Thredbo, with the ski season getting off to a pretty slow start this week. It got up to 15 degrees in Wagga, and if you were on the coast for the long weekend, 17 was the maximum in Moruya. Around the country, dry in Melbourne and 16 degrees today. Sydney got to 18, and some dreary weather in the southwest, tops of 20 degrees in Perth. This band of cloud moving across from the west is bringing blustery winds and showers over the southeast of the country at the moment. It'll also bring some snow showers to the alpine regions, but in the north, high pressure will keep things dry and mostly clear. Around the country tomorrow, wet weather for the southeast. Melbourne forecast for 16 degrees, dry in Sydney and 19, Brisbane a sunny top of 23. Closer to home, the rain is setting in most parts. 13 the top in Yass, Bega at 17, while it'll reach just 2 degrees in Thredbo. Some patches of morning frost and fog tomorrow. A very high chance of showers as well. We're set to receive up to 5 millimetres of rain and a top of 12 degrees. The sun will rise at 4 minutes past 7 and set at 2 minutes past 5. And looking ahead, still a little bit of rain on Wednesday, but things should dry up towards the end of the week. Watch out for that cool start to the day on Thursday. And that's the latest from the Canberra newsroom for this Monday evening. I'm Jade Toomey. Lovely to be with you. Stay with us now for 7:30 with Laura Tingle. Enjoy the rest of your long weekend. Yara, good night.